you remember that? Did you ever get that? All right, let's get started. This is the special city council meeting, the budget workshop for Tuesday, June 29th, 2021. Would y'all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I got to read it now because I'll say it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. I think I say the pledge more since I've moved to TK than I did all my school, elementary, middle school, and everything combined. I mean, between this and men's breakfast and all the other stuff I do. All right, we don't have any public comments. Is that correct? Oh, I forgot to check with Tim. Are we up, Tim? Do I need to start all over? Did you get my Pledge of Allegiance? He got it? Okay, so we don't have to repeat that. I'm sorry, I forgot to give him the thumbs up. All right, let's go to item number 2, which is the council budget workshops, fiscal year 2021 and 2022.
All right, Mr. Mayor, members of council, up on the screens, if you prefer to look at those, is your packet. We've also given you hard copies at your seats. If you'll bear with me for just a couple minutes, I'd like to kind of just do a quick overview, somewhat overview of the general fund. And then we can go back and go department by department. We do have our department heads here, and they'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have. So as you tab down through, on your general fund revenues, a couple things I just want to point out. On your auto tax and your current property taxes, we get the abstract from York County. The figures that you see before you in those two line items are considering a 98.6% collection rate, which is what we typically use in those areas. And we are, as you can see on the year-to-dates, we are exceeding on our current property tax by a pretty healthy margin for the current year. We're anticipating around about approximately 6% increase in tax revenues, property tax revenues, according to the abstract from the county. As you go on down, you've got some, if you look at building inspections and business license, you see those are significant numbers. Our current year-to-date on building inspection fees is $1,054,710 as of this morning. Your middle column on all the budgets is as of May 31st, so there's a couple items where I asked Bob to pull the numbers as of this morning. On your business license revenue, you're at $1,436,450 as of this morning. So in those two items, what Bob did was look back at July, August, September of last year and use those dollars coming forward. And that's where we arrived at we actually scored it down at the 1.3 and the 1.6. We actually think that there's a very good chance we could exceed both of those numbers if things continue next year the way they have been going this year. A couple other things I want to highlight for you before we dive too deep into the departments. Your total increase on your revenues is $1,445,816. That's an 11% increase on total revenues, and we are not proposing any type of fee or tax increase at all going into this coming year. A couple other things as we go through the expenditures that I just want to highlight. Municipal council, obviously we've got the election in there, and when we come back, we'll talk about a couple other things that we've added in there in the council budget. Municipal court, really your biggest change there is with the full-time judge, full-time clerk, so that shows up in your salaries and wages. Really nothing in changes in admin, development services. By the way, Susan has an eye, I don't know if it's an injury or what. She had to go to the eye doctor, so that's why she's not here tonight. She's home resting, maybe out tomorrow as well, so we wish her a speedy recovery. But in development services, you'll see down there comp plan update. Don't worry, it's not time to update the comp plan. We just didn't want to create a new line item. That is the small area plan the Planning Commission is going to be working on, and those are the consulting fees with COG associated with that. So with it being a one-time thing, we just didn't see the need to add a whole nother brand-new line item for that. So just showing it in there. Public Works, we are envisioning coming back to council in the fall after budget adoption to do a capital lease for new leaf vac truck, front-end loader and dump truck. And we'll talk about those again a little bit later. In your police department budget, a couple things. One, the salaries does include or anticipate a K-9/traffic officer that was on the council request there. 5 new flock safety cameras to add to the 4 that we have now. And then a new K-9 vehicle for the K-9 officer, specific for K-9, and 2 replacement vehicles. And that's what your changes are in there. And we'll need to have a conversation about boarding and lodging of prisoners when we get to that part. Fire, Chief Hasey's going to talk through that, but it does envision potentially through 3 new firefighters, or it could be 6, depending on SAFER grant, but he'll get into details there. Parks and Rec envisions 2 new hires with the anticipation of moving through Catawba Park next year. And last but certainly not least, if you look at your non-departmental, you've got the fire station, police station, and Catawba Park bond payments. The impact fees on the revenue side equal the totals of those, so they're being fully paid out of impact fees for the coming fiscal year. And we do envision collecting more impact fees than what we're actually showing here. We're just showing what's going to be spent out of those impact fees. Year to date, we're at 184, correct, Bob? Yes. 184 impact fees collected this fiscal year thus far. So that is moving right along. We do need to spend a little bit of time talking about recycling when we get to that part. We do have an uptick on computer maintenance, and that is for new Sonic walls, and we need to replace the computer that operates all the bells and whistles here. It's Firewall. Firewall. So as we proceed down, you see that we are proposing $688,000 in capital projects, which is on the last page of your general fund. And those are the 3 projects that we are proposing. A sidewalk on Windward from the crosswalk back down to Rundy Park, to the entrance to Rundy Park. So you've got the crosswalk coming from the trail, the crosswalk to nowhere, yes. Doing a sidewalk back down Windward to Rundy Park. Upfitting the exterior of the Parks and Rec building next to City Hall to match our new facilities, as well as pave that parking lot and connect it to the existing City Hall parking lot, just for a safety on the egress, instead of people turning out on that blind curve, being able to come through the stoplight. And the trail from the Beach Club Trail, round about the Dove Trace lift station area on that Hunter's Run to Beach Club Trail, over to Stonecrest. In all, that's $688,000 in projects. If there are other projects council would rather us consider than these, obviously this is where we would like to hear that, so we can get busy working on what that looks like. This is, in the 20 years I've been here, the best budget I have seen in this city. I think Bob would reiterate that just in the time that he has been here. And in addition to that $688,000, we are envisioning, projecting a $229,000 in operational contingency. And there's potentially, as I stated earlier, in that BI and BL and property tax areas, we could actually realize come June of next year an additional $200,000 to potentially as high as $400,000 additional dollars that could be realized in addition to what you see here. So with that, do we want to dive into revenues, or do you want to go skip ahead to expenditures and start going through those?
Expenditures for me.
Can I ask one quick question? I'm just curious.
Yes, sir.
I too, saw the big jump in business license and inspections. Do we envision, and I don't know, I heard that Trinity was going to back off on what they were doing because of construction costs. Do we envision that happening with Lennar? Are they full steam ahead?
They are full steam ahead. I've got a actually meeting with them tomorrow because they are wanting to come with another LOC to council that's pretty hefty because they're wanting to run, keep going. And I'm telling them, you're going to have to bring a reduction to council first off of that first one before we even entertain taking something of that size to council. So Susan and I are meeting with them tomorrow afternoon, but Windhaven's full speed ahead. The numbers that generated, as far as the construction numbers on the residential side, we're envisioning 160 next year, and that's based on Susan's conversations with the builders that are currently active right now, and really doesn't include anything with River Falls, even though I believe Planning Commission should be reviewing their preliminary plats for Taylor Morrison and River Falls here pretty soon. I know it's in the technical review side now with the tech team. So at this point, we've done 184 permits, new construction permits this year, and we're only couching it at 160 for next year. So we felt like we are underscoring it, yet the construction costs are going through the roof, and so are the prices of the homes. So I don't think the builders are taking a hit on those construction at all. But again, we're using the numbers that they gave us, and it's about 24, well, not knowing how the rest of this year ends out, it's at least 24 less than what we're at right now.
You said 164 for next year?
160. We're at 184 now. We budgeted on the 160 for next year.
The cell tower rental, is that a dead issue now?
That is per contract.
So we're not trying to renegotiate all that stuff anymore? Okay, so
Not
that's
right
a
now.
dead issue.
No, sir. Not at this point. They wanted to get us to panic and jump,
Yeah.
and we didn't, and now they're still paying us.
Not as long as Gus is here, we ain't panicking.
So we can go ahead. Any other questions on revenues? Y'all want to go through? I don't want to rush at all, so if there are revenue questions, we can spend some time on that, or we can move forward into expenditures.
Doesn't sound like we got any questions on revenue.
I just need a minute to like.
Go ahead. Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
But if you guys want to keep moving.
I didn't,
through-
by no means in my overview did I cover each one. I just wanted to touch on a couple of those big ones where we saw significant change. Yeah, but more than happy to discuss any of them that you don't have a question about.
I know you and I had spoke about it, but could we look at potential cost for just a small section of sidewalk?
Yep.
Right on Windjammer coming from TUK Drive where the golf cart path connects there, like just that.
Going back towards Bora Bora?
Yeah,
Yep.
just like that little section, just like we did on like Seven Coves and all that, just because we have a lot of people crossing
Tim and I
that
talked
area.
about that today after you and I did, and he's reaching out to get some estimates.
Okay,
And honestly, I think for as short as what that is, not knowing, what we've got to do on the back edge of curb, with some
Yeah.
of that slope off and everything, it potentially could be captured in the proposed operational budget. But
Okay.
once we get those numbers, hopefully that could be part of the discussion on the budget presentation on July 12th. But we are working on that. Yes, ma'am.
So, real quick, just going back to the building inspection fees and the business license revenue. So, we're at, did you say that these numbers are vastly different, the actuals, the year-to-dates?
Yeah, so your
And what
year
were
to.
those numbers again?
All right, so your year-to-date on building inspections, as of this morning, is 1,054,710. And on BL, 1,436,450.
What was the driver for the significant increase within a couple
Homes.
weeks?
Homes.
Mask, we have a
You
direct
get a mass
from
deposit
Mask,
that comes in.
and June's a
Yep.
big month for deposits from Mask, and we had about 600,000 that came in June only. June,
Okay.
July are very big months.
Okay. Because that like doubled.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Oh, yes.
But June, July, August, September are very big months for us with BIBL.
Okay, thanks.
Also, your new home starts, every time they pull a permit for a new home, they're paying BL based on what that home price is. So
Okay.
That's another factor that has driven that BL revenue up.
What did we budget for last year? It was like 120 or something, and then you said we were
Your
at
budget for this
184?
current year was 1.25, and I think last year we had actually budgeted, for the previous year, I think we budgeted 1.3,
Wow,
and we stepped it down for this current year to 1.25,
okay,
and
blew that out of the water.
missed it.
Yeah.
It came in a lot higher,
Yeah,
for sure.
okay.
And recreation revenue,
Leaving that flat, I think where we see that increase is after we open Catawba Park. Our fall numbers are typically less than our spring, just sheer numbers in the way of registration. We have some kids that, they still want to go play tackle football, say leave our program, go do those things. We're also going to have to limit several of our sports and age groups. The school district has converted the softball field that they had at Gold Hill Middle into an auxiliary field. So they've grassed it in, so it's of no use to us at this point. So we're very limited on field space for this fall and next spring, and at least the start of fall of 2022 with the plan of, okay, we're going to be really tight August, September, and then, wow, look at all our room come October. So we're just keeping that as a push number off of what we're bringing in this year.
okay.
In
And are we
fact,
still
in
at
fact, the year-to-date is 217,000,
Okay, okay.
217,000 plus. So it's picks up in June and July
Yeah.
again. So I expect it to be 280,
Okay.
I do.
And then I'm guessing that York County does their budget here.
Correct.
Okay, that's the
So
difference
next week, we'll be, Joey will
1.
send the required memo over to the county, and then they'll send us the rest of our money, so,
Okay.
yep.
I'm good,
Okay,
if
great.
anyone else.
All right, whoops, I clicked off the thing here. Let's get that back up on the screen. All right, so municipal council expenses. You see we've got anticipated $4,000 election expense that would come in with the November election. We bumped up travel and training just a little bit, just with the anticipation of potential new council members. And then we do have, on meeting expense, we did increase that by 1,000. We've got to replace one of the cameras in here. And that's where that is. So, everything else remained the same on the council expense, side of things. Any questions or adjustments or anything there?
Sorry, what did you say, the difference right now in salary is just that we haven't finished out the year?
Correct. Good, okay. Municipal court, really just some minor adjustments at the bottom. Obviously, your biggest change is about a $14,000 change on the, with the judge clerk situation that we discussed last week. Outside of that, you're obviously with reimbursement of other governmental units coming down. Part of the reason why where we're at is due to court being closed a good bit this past year. But obviously, that number could go up, and if it does, the revenue end is going to go up as well. So there is a formula that Bob uses that as percentages. Out of the 60% off of a ticket, some of it goes to the reimbursement, some of it goes to victim assistance, some goes to the public defender's office.
We
So-
used a 50% percentage this year. But it could change, it could be higher, it could be lower, depending on the court judgments too.
Right. So that's what you've got in court. And Katie will be happy to answer any questions that you may have on that, if any.
I couldn't remember. What is the amount for the full-time judge that we're looking at for our salary? at this-
54.
54, okay, perfect.
And 42 on the municipal clerk, 42 and change.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions on court? budget? Good. All right, admin, no real changes here. We do have put in across the board the 2% COLA on the salaries and wages. So what you see in salaries and wages, and I will call out where there are requested new headcount, obviously none in admin. But that's really where you see your changes through there. For the most part, admin's pretty consistent. The HR training and development, just based on what we're being billed this year, and we do have more that will go through that line item. That's why we were able to bring that down some, but we still envisioning door consulting, using the consultant, use those same trainings. Very, very well received by the staff. That we had, what, 22, 24 employees, Dora? Yeah? That were able to go through it this year, and huge positive response. They really enjoyed it, got a lot out of it. So several of them were brand-new supervisors, so it was very timely. So we appreciate council funding that this past year, and we are hoping to be able to put an additional group through in the coming fiscal year. Other than that, there's really no other changes, no significant changes at all in the administrative budget, unless there's any questions.
Remind me what's all in the office supply budget? Like $20,000 for admin, seems,
Pens, paper, et cetera, cartridges, et cetera.
we use that much paper
Yes.
and pens,
Mhm.
even with the. Yeah, but $20,000 is.
15 of that's Bob's paper budget. The rest of it, we share pens and notepads, but
Do you really need 5 rubber bands?
No, that's only 2. That's not 5, it's 2.
Okay. well,
just
it looked
two
like
two
5.
big giant ones.
Yeah.
Other things that may go through there is if, office share breaks is worn out, needs to be replaced, that would go through there, through office supplies. It's not just pens and papers and paper clips, but odds and ends inside the office that are needed in City Hall ends up in there. And between Lauren and Dana and Katie, and Shanae, they do a pretty good job as much as they can dividing out the supply orders to the various departments. You've got TCUD, Development Services, Finance, Administration, all in, HR, they're all in there. Realistically though, I mean, you've got admin, you've got DevServ, you've got TCUD, as your primaries in there. They do a pretty good job trying to code that and divvy that out as appropriately as they can. Any other questions on admin?
The decrease in training and development?
That was based on the supervisory training. What they billed us was less than what we had budgeted for, doing the same thing next year, so we just brought that down by that amount,
Okay,
but still doing the same training.
okay.
Mhm. All right, Development Services, I will try to cover as best I can in Susan's absence. Any questions y'all may have, we'll work to get those answered tomorrow for you if we can, if Bob or I can't answer them. So you see that's a step down in total budget, and that just has to do with some of the shifting around that we've done with the Business Services Office, with the salaries and things there. They're starting to get that groove. Yeah, I expect the efficiencies to continue to improve as we go through the summer and into the fall. But it's new, so we're working through those challenges right now, but definitely seeing some improvements. Again, your biggest change, so to speak here, addition, is that $15,000, and that's consulting fees with COG to help put together that small area plan that Planning Commission has been discussing. And I think, Heather, haven't you and Alicia, y'all been involved in those conversations, right? Yeah. And that is Development Services. Any questions or anything you need to cover there? Good? All right. Public Works. We'll get Tim out of his room back there if we need him. Not requesting any new headcount in this budget. You got some upticks, some that are coming down throughout the budget, but you're looking at a little over or just under $8,000 as far as change from this year to next year. Contracted lawn care, that one's going up, but that's by contract amount. Little extra money in there for the landscape maintenance because of the new landscaping that they've installed and are installing, being able to maintain all that. All those new areas. They're actually working on Windward today. Got stumps removed, got some plants down, and trying to get that pretty before Saturday morning. So, working hard. That equipment and lease line item, if you look down fourth from the bottom there, you're at 28,809. Bob, does any portion of that come off after next year?
No.
Okay, all right, that's what I thought. So what we're looking to do with the leaf vac and the front end loader and the dump truck, all items necessary for the yard waste collection, to be able to speed that up, get more efficient, get things collected a lot timelier. Stormwater can't handle the whole thing by itself, not without an increase in the stormwater fee. We do have some things coming off of stormwater, final payment this year, about 30,000 and change, and we'll cover that when we get there. But, so what we would envision doing is you wouldn't have an expense this year, in the 22 fiscal year. It wouldn't come until 2023, and at that point, stormwater will take on what it can take on with the balance coming over into this equipment lease line item in Public Works. Obviously, wouldn't be able to have the leaf vac for this fall. There's pretty good lead time on it, but we'd envision November timeframe, probably bringing the resolution to council. Soon thereafter, work to get those items ordered so that we could have the leaf vac ready in time, for October of 2022. And then we'd have two of them running. I think during peak lease season, we get to it takes us about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks, with just one truck, just to get half of the peninsula done. We're starting to get more and more out in Lake Ridge. Still not tons over in Serenity Point yet, but we get them from time to time. So getting this new one helps keep us on a good schedule. Two, it also takes some of the wear and tear off of the one that we've got now. Will help decrease those hours on it so we can keep rolling with it.
So you're saying that the leaf vac, the front end loader,
And dump truck.
and dump truck.
Mhm.
So those will all be used mainly by stormwater, and then,
Well, they're all the same people. So
Okay.
it's Public Works and Stormwater staff are all the
So-
exact same staff. So yes, they'll be, the front end loader and dump truck, yeah, it's gonna get used by Public Works and Public Works staff. It could be doing road cleanup, from a storm. It could be, doing the yard debris cleanup, that kind of thing. So,
Okay.
the only other option would be, to increase our stormwater fees by about $4 or $5. And we're trying to avoid doing that fee increase.
okay,
That's why we're sharing it between those two funds.
okay,
Now, if the ERUs exceed what we're projecting for next year, those equivalent residential units, obviously, we're going to keep as much of that expense in stormwater as we can.
okay.
But again, none of those expenses will appear in 2022, but just wanted to make sure y'all are aware that we would be bringing that request in the form of a resolution as we've done in the past. It would include that as well as the vehicles over on the police side.
How long would the lease be? Like a 4-year lease?
Yes,
4-year?
yep, we would just do it as a 4-year.
Okay.
And we've got, on the stormwater end, I've got those price breakdowns that you'll be able to see.
Okay.
And we figured those on a 2.25% APR. My guess is it's going to be less than 2.25. We've been pretty successful on those governmental leases that we've done as far as interest rates, so.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we weren't supplementing
Correct.
stormwater on the general fund budget.
Yep,
But
yes,
if
ma'am.
they're split between
Yes,
the
ma'am.
use, then it's fine.
Absolutely.
Back to Windward. So
Yes,
you
sir.
ground those stumps that were the trees that had fallen during the storm?
They didn't grind them, they pulled them up so that we could actually plant. I've been
what's-
told that if you grind them, you can't plant anything there.
And what's going in their place?
Do not know.
Tree guy doesn't know?
Hey, Tim, you come out?
Sorry to wake you.
Come here, Tim.
Looks so
Come on
nice
out, buddy.
and, nice and cozy back there in that
What,
dark
what
room.
trees are we gonna get on Windward?
We don't have a complete diagram yet. We'll be working on that shortly to solidify that.
We got some going in the
Landscape
median and in the traffic circle.
Yes.
Oh, and the traffic circle.
Yep, where we lost all those
We
pines
lost
and
mostly
everything.
pines, right? And we're-
Yep.
And are you putting pines back or?
Nope.
No.
Yeah, we're actually removing a whole bunch of pines at Turner behind the soccer field because of the pine beetle, pine bark beetle.
Crepe myrtles?
Possibly.
Those, Laura pedlums, we're looking for things that'll give us some good color.
Yeah, that's
I mean, obviously, it's got that big giant magnolia. So you're really not gonna see anything until you drive around the circle, but we want it to have some color and some pop. So they are working through that, getting some mulch done, got stumps out, I heard today. Got some plants in the median, I heard.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I hadn't been down there yet today.
So,
Drove right by, didn't notice. I mean, I
There you
wasn't
go.
paying attention
Yep.
for some reason.
Been
So-
seeing some flowers out there, so they look good.
What
Trying to get it ready.
classifies under building and ground maintenance? I see it goes down
That's,
by,
well, that's stuff around the shop mostly.
oh, okay,
We got to replace a pipe down there and the apron to the shop.
okay,
A couple other things going on over there.
okay.
so you've got those projects in this year, don't have them in next year. So, yes, ma'am. Anything else on Public Works? Any other questions?
Awesome. Thank you.
By the way, Public
Amen.
Works is at full head count, fully staffed for probably the first time in 6 years, and been that way for a couple months now, so getting a lot done.
Tim must be calming down, not
Getting a
abusing
lot
him so much.
Public Works is using a lot
Knock
of.
on
Somebody will
wood,
quit
those
tomorrow,
salt-
watch.
Paper too. for being-
Whatever else we've got to do there, get the horseshoes out, the four-leaf clovers, and the rabbit's feet. Police Department. So we are down 3, potentially going to be just down 2 currently. It's working through that, getting applications is very difficult, as y'all can imagine. This proposed budget does envision the addition of 1 headcount, that would be a K-9 traffic officer. They would be used on and we can, Steve, why don't you come on up? Let's go ahead and talk about your DUI and drug totals here. If you look at the screen, let me zoom in just a little bit, make that a little easier for everybody, and we can obviously email these to you afterwards, but here's your DUI totals, 2013 to 2019. You can see from 13 to 16, 144% increase. And then a 31% increase from 16 to 19. So they're definitely getting hammered there. Chief, did I go down far enough? Nope, I'm still on page 1, aren't I? Yep.
You're on page 1.
Let's keep going. There we go. Let's get on page 2 here. Here's your drug offense totals from 23 to 2019. You can see what those are doing. 435% increase. First 3 years, 130% increase over the next 3 years. Chief, why don't you talk through on the drug stuff and the K-9/traffic officer position, just to bring council up to speed.
So as we've seen the population growth around us, we knew that there was going to be some issues with that, but then other circumstances that have gone on in the world. But the way that we envision the traffic K-9 officer is, one of the biggest things that we receive complaint-wise at the agency is traffic and traffic calming. And a lot of times, we're 3 short now, so we're down to 3 officers per shift. Typically, you have someone on vacation, sick, or in training. We're having to call people in on a daily basis. With this, we could do 2 weeks of day shift where they're just addressing traffic complaints, meaning if someone calls today and says somebody's speeding on Shoreline, tomorrow there is an officer on Shoreline addressing the speeding complaints and traffic calming in that area. And then 2 weeks of night shift where we're addressing some of the DUIs we've had. We had a young man, 17 or 18 years old, a couple weeks ago, flipped his vehicle, highly intoxicated, also on drugs. We're just seeing more drugged driving, a lot of drug driving as well. And so this gives us the ability to deal with that. We've had, just in the last 3 weeks, we've had 3 trafficking drug cases. That's a lot of drugs. Trafficking is a lot of drugs. And so we've seen that we definitely need to address this. We don't see it going away, and we feel like we need to deal with it. And we're not talking about marijuana. I'm talking about meth, cocaine, crack, and heroin is what we're mostly seeing. We dealt with, what was it, cocaine today? We had a PWID, possession with the intent to sell and deliver cocaine, today as well. So we're dealing with it every day, every day. And this gives us the ability to deal with that.
Are you finding this on like traffic stops or
It's,
people's homes or?
it varies. So homes, we made one of the largest steroid busts in the county, was made several months ago. We just had a trafficking meth case made not too far off of, it was Gardendale. So it's a mixed bag. A lot of it is in vehicles. That's where the K-9 really is a big assistance, but it can also help us in homes as well.
So do you think that the DUI increase is just mainly based on population, or do you think that there's actually been an increase in drinking and driving?
I think you could probably say there's been an increase in drinking and driving, because over the last year, a lot of people didn't have stuff to do, and so that's what they were doing. So that would be one of the increases. But I think mental health, sadness, people are dealing with that stuff in different ways, and it's not going away. It's only going to increase. I don't expect it to decrease. Even with this, we're going to see a spike in these numbers next year if we do get an officer that can deal with it. But the point is, we save somebody's life from a car wreck, or that, that's the end goal here.
So, in the PD budget, in addition to that, again, that's just one new head count. If you drop down to the bottom line item, there, K-9, 14,100, that's for the actual dog, vet bills, kennel at the officer's house, kennel at PD, food, that type thing. So that's where the 14,100 comes in. You won't see this, but it'll appear under vehicle lease in 2023. But the resolution that we would bring to council would be for a vehicle for the K-9 officer. Obviously, it's got to have, it's got to be equipped for having the dog in the back, and then 2 replacement patrol cars. But we do have, Bob, we've got some coming off with the final payment this year. So you're going to see that line item, that equipment lease, vehicle lease line item, pretty much going to be in that 170 number going forward as we rotate old, high mileage, high maintenance vehicles off, new ones coming on. Under software maintenance, reason for the 30,000 jump there, that's the 5 new flock safety cameras. That's where those are. So you've got 4 now, or do we still have just the 3? Did the one on dam get replaced?
They fixed it
Okay.
last
So
week.
we've got 4 out there now. You've got 5. This would envision adding 5 more. Chief, do you have those locations?
I do. They're going to be mostly going
Outbound.
out of town, and then we added one additional at the, in between Taco Bell and Famous Toastery, because that's one of the main thresholds that we were worried we were missing in some areas, so we added one there.
What about Windhaven? Because you got to go past Windhaven before you catch that one.
No, you actually catch,
it before you get
it's
it.
up at
Put one up before
Zimmerman.
that?
It's
Okay.
at Zimmerman, and I'm in talks with Windhaven and hopefully talks with Cameron Creek about their HOAs, picking those up. We'll see how that works
We're
out,
putting
but
some
I'm
in there.
working on that.
And I see what I was going to talk to you about. This reminded me. How are we notified about the increase in lodging expense for our prisoners? What was the method they used to notify us? A letter?
No, they brought us all over to a meeting, and the county manager and the county finance director told us they were going to double the fee.
Okay, so it was just my meetings because
They had all the city managers in there.
they got mad at us because we sent them by letter.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we should have did the same way that they notified us.
And just had a verbal
Just had a meeting, yeah.
conversation with
So I
us.
said, okay. All right.
So on boarding and lodging of prisoners, we were invited over to the county to have a meeting with the county manager. This was all city managers. We were notified that they were going up on the recycle tipping fees from $35 a ton to $50 a ton. So recycling, as of July 1, is now more expensive than trash. And that they were going to take the boarding and lodging of prisoner fee from $48.95, I believe it is, per prisoner per day, to $95 per prisoner per day. And wow, you're just making that decision, huh? Yep, and we're not going to do an East Side Justice Center. Those conversations are off the table. Sheriff doesn't want it, y'all don't need it. And that was the meeting. In talking with our attorney, who has also had conversations with Rock Hill's attorney, under state law, the sheriff has to accept prisoners, and he has to board and lodge them. None of the municipalities have an agreement with the county agreeing to pay them for said prisoners. We all pay taxes to the county. Conversations we've had with Rock Hill and the other municipalities is we're not going to pay you for the prisoners. We're going to bring the prisoners out, we're going to drop them off. Y'all have a legal obligation or state code to accept them.
I mean, think about it. If we arrest somebody who's wanted in the county, we arrest them, then we pay for it. We ought to just catch and release if that's the case. I mean, just say, oh, you're not wanted in TK? Go ahead, drive up to right over there. We'll call somebody to pick you up.
And this is part of a conversation that's been ongoing for years, even preceding me as city manager, that our residents pay county taxes on their tax bill. There are a portion of your taxes that go to operate the Moss Justice Center and the sheriff's budget. But every time our law enforcement does their job and catches a bad guy, a bad girl, and has to take them over to Moss Justice, they then charge us again for it. And
I
now
get it.
they
So-
want to double the fee.
How will that work now that the sheriff's department is going to kind of run their own show and they're not under the coordination of York County government anymore?
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
The county council still has to approve their budget.
Okay.
It's like nobody on county council wants to raise taxes. They just tell us how much they're going to charge us.
So they just pass
When
it on?
it should be
Right.
through the property
A couple
tax
of years
system.
ago, they took the sheriff's budget and said, okay, that equates to this many mills of the total mills. So now we have sheriff millage. I would have, if I was a sheriff, I'd have been like, whoa, wait a minute, but so over the last, I'm gonna say maybe 2-3 budget years, you've had this, what they refer to as the sheriff's millage and then the county operation. Doesn't matter. You know, if you look at the breakdown of your tax bills, you're still paying the county taxes. And yeah, we see this as them double taxing us.
That's right.
And there's no agreement that says we're going to pay them anything, nor Rock Hill, nor Clover, nor York. And state law says sheriff has to accept it. 50% of the counties in this state?
Yes, that's correct.
50% of the counties in this state don't charge their municipalities.
I
Come on.
can add one other thing. When we arrest somebody for a minor charge, like no driver's license, but when we find that they do have trafficking heroin, we take them to jail, and if we book them in under the no driver's license and the trafficking heroin, they charge us for 30 days of the no driver's license. Then once that fine or penalty is done of 30 days, then they incur the cost because they have to of the county charge. So that's just another thing that's been going on for years. And we've been arguing that for years.
So that's why we've taken that number down to 0.
For
the coming fiscal year. Yes, sir.
As of July 1st, we're not.
We will,
we're gonna
well,
look at-
we'll be paying in July for the June charges, but not in July.
Am I correct that the sheriff has the capability to increase his millage if he chooses to?
Yes.
Well, he has to go through the county.
Well, he has to go through the
But
county.
the county has
yes.
to approve it. All
And
he's got to do is ask for it.
nobody wants to increase
Right.
taxes, so
Okay.
they just
Right.
say, we're not going to increase taxes, but we're going to get the money from you guys.
So,
For a fight on that one? Because that's coming.
We've already been doing it. We met over
Counties-
pancakes the other day.
yeah.
Settle
County-
those over
County's not
pancakes.
happy, but, I mean, yeah, they're also taking the new rec money. So, we're about to get into Parks and Rec anyway, so we'll go ahead and cover it.
I've got a
Years
question
ago-
for you. Stay up there.
All right, well, let's go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and talk to Chief.
Don't
We
try
can
to
We
get
can
away.
talk about the rec fees.
Almost.
Almost.
We'll talk about rec stuff in a minute, so go ahead.
So I just wanted to ask, so like last week we had a presentation, or last month, whatever it was, a presentation on mental illness. And, you know, I just heard you mention mental illness is a big concern and issue and probably leads to a lot of other issues and breaking the law and just issues for you guys. So I just wanted to ask, you know, is there anything that you all need, given the significant increase, to better address
Can I
issues
cover
with
this
mental?
one?
Well,
We need the state to start funding mental health facilities.
Yeah.
Bottom line, these guys, our firefighters, they go through training. They go
Yeah.
through training every year. But when we have to handcuff a 12-year-old because we have to transport them down to Horry County to a mental health facility, that's not right. But there's nobody else. Yeah, the mental health hospital that shut down on Bull Street in Columbia 20 years ago, now there's nothing. Yeah, you take them to Piedmont, sometimes those people beat us back to the city. Yeah, I mean, that's where the issue, I mean, is there something y'all could do to help? Yeah, Columbia, the General Assembly. They don't talk about it. Yeah, they're talking about all the other things with the budgets, you know, education and open carry firearms and, you know, how are we going to spend ARP money? But they're not talking about that. And that's where, I mean, am I wrong?
no, through the Police Chiefs Association, we tried to pass, or get legislation passed the last 2 years on mental health transport. Virginia has the model. They're doing it right now where they use, basically the hospitals use a company that is specific in that. But we can't take away 6 hours to go to Horry County. We're handcuffing 11, 12-year-olds. But again, not having the facilities. So we are trained. We're trained in the academy coming out. And we do 2 hours of training every year, which is never enough. If we can do more, we need to do more. But the reality is, what we're seeing is, it's just a rotating door that we're dealing with the same mental health. I always like to use this specific because it's just an example that happened. We had somebody that stabbed somebody twice. We took them to the hospital 3 times. And then in the last time, they set themselves on fire in the middle of their living room, and we had to respond to it. We're dealing with this crisis on a daily basis. Again, when you're putting an 11-year-old and taking them to the hospital, I've never done that. That's coming up on 30 years, and that just happened last month. I was like, what is going on? It is treatment, and facilities. Those where the real help, if anytime you talk to people, that's where we need it is in legislation. We need legislation passed to be able to treat these people that need the help, because jails have become the mental health facility, and it is incorrect.
So there's basically nothing that we
On a
could do
local
from
level,
yeah.
I'm not saying there isn't anything. There's always
sorry.
resources. But, you know, and there's a lot of pilot programs. But none of those have shown success thus far. And like Charlotte's running a pilot program where they have therapists that are getting paid to come out on crisis calls. Well, everybody's quitting because those crisis calls are the ones with the people who have a knife to their throat, a gun to their head. They're scared to death to go on it, and the money that they're paying for it is not significant enough. And then they're turning around, going to the hospital and getting out the next day, and we're doing it all over again. So I'm not saying that there isn't programs out there. I just don't know if there's a successful program yet that I think that on the state level needs to get there to bring those resources to local level. And I know that they're trying. I think that there's a lot of work in that avenue. It's just not there yet.
And y'all are signed up, you've got Sergeant Galloway signed up with the.
We did.
numbers, right?
We signed up for crisis intervention team to train all of our officers, and they were full until 2022. So they can't come in and train us till 2022, but they are going to bring us an abbreviated 2-hour course, which we've had 3 2-hour courses in the last year and a half. So it's just adding. There's never, as much as we can get is good. I I can say I've watched our officers do a great job with people with knives coming at them, and they've de-escalated more situations that they could have used deadly force right here, right in TGK.
And then I guess, sorry, one more question is, I know that we had a position at one point that was dedicated to social media and education, and I think that position, was then we needed that officer to be in the field. So is that a position that is going to need to come back, or you anticipate just,
I think
How does that all work?
I've realigned some things, and we basically changed the format of how we're operating, and I don't see that we need that community service officer right now. And one of the things that, it's a mindset change, but I want every officer to be a community service officer. And if you just make one officer, then everybody relies on that one person. And so it's kind of a change in concept, and so I don't see that we need it, but we have social media covered currently. And if I see that needs changes because it's not being served the way that we need it, then we'll definitely look at it in the year or two to come, but right now I don't anticipate that.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions on PD? Cool. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief, for what you do.
I believe fire is next. Chief Hasty, if you want to come on up. Your real significant change here is basically your salary, wages, that top colored in area, and then in uniforms. So real quick, and then I'm going to turn this over to Chief so he can explain it. What we've built in here is 3 full-time firefighters for an entire year, okay? And that's reflected in your salaries and wages and all that stuff, and in the uniform side of things, force turnout gear, that type thing. We have the opportunity to, and Chief is planning to, but we want to have this conversation with y'all, to go after what's referred to as a SAFER grant, SAFER, SAFER grant. Chief's actually pretty much got it put together already, and ready to submit, but the submittal's not till March, okay?
Like next year.
So, and so what we would envision is applying for actually 6 firefighters. 6 is what we need to get to the NFPA standard, all right? And that's adding 2 per shift, 1 per house. I did that math right? Yeah. So if we're successful, SAFER grant, you know what? Let me shut up. Chief, take it, buddy.
So I just got a Cliff Notes version for all of you, just so you can flip through. You don't have to read it now. I'll kind of give you a quick overview. So NFPA is what kind of governs us. That's the standard we're held to. We deal with the NFPA, National Fire Protection Association. We deal with OSHA. Obviously, we deal with ISO. So they're big things for us. NFPA is probably the standard that we're held to if we had to go to court. So with that, we started, if you look down the numbers, you can see 1710 house fire, apartment fire, and shopping center. So those are the 3 big ones that could happen here. You guys have seen the house fire recently. But those are the numbers of firefighters that NFPA is looking for within 9 minutes and 30 seconds. Currently, we're not doing that. The fire we had the other day, I would say that we had our staff on scene, and by the way, I don't count in those numbers. So whoever the incident commander is, the fire chief doesn't count towards those numbers. And so it's kind of an interesting dynamic. So we need those 12 firefighters to make an effective firefighting force and to manage the fire. So I pitched this to Charlie probably 4 or 5 months ago, and we went through the grueling efforts to try and put this together. So this is the grant. That's the grant. So we did a lot of background work, put a lot of data, a lot of numbers out, and we started following this thing. So our goal, and Charlie and I talked about it a lot, our goal was to try and get these 6 firefighters at no cost to us. We didn't get it together this year. This year, the feds funded this at 100% for 3 years. They picked up the total cost.
Instead of the 75-25.
Yeah, so if you look at the back page, and Charlie's there, so there's the typical is, this is their typical dynamic. It's the 75, 75, 35. So they pick up 75%, and this is historically, they've picked up 75%, 75%, 35%. And the fourth year, it becomes ours. And I did that, Charlie and I've talked about it. So when I came in, I built a 5-year plan, and in the 5-year plan was to bring us to compliance with an FPA, to protect us more than anything else. And so that's where these numbers came from. The goal with this, the money that's in the salary line item, is to take and try and get this grant. If we do that, there's an upfront cost for us. The upfront cost, and it's laid out in this page in a quarter document for you. So it doesn't cover vacation, it doesn't cover overtime, it doesn't cover the startup of uniforms, protective equipment, those kind of things. We have to pay for that. So we would take that salary money that's there, really it's not, we would like, if we're fortunate enough to get the grant, that won't be salary money, that'll be startup cost. And we'll roll that money into the SAFER grant. So that was the plan I pitched to Charlie, and he supported it and wanted to bring it forward to you guys. If, for some reason, we're not fortunate enough to get the grant, then we would take that money and roll it into salaries and try and hire 3.
And those 3 wouldn't come on until June. So if we don't get the SAFER grant, you end up showing a savings on your salaries and wages because we built it in for the full year. If we do get the SAFER grant, it would bring on 6, and those monies would move out of salaries and wages and move down into your medical expense, your uniforms, those type of things, as Chief called it, the startup cost.
Do you think it would be funded at 100% going into next year?
I don't have any idea.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say from year to year. Like I said, historically, it's been a 75-25 match.
Okay.
And 75-25, and then 35-65. So that's the historical
Right.
numbers. This year, they funded it 100% for 3 years.
Well, let's
And
fingers
Chief, correct me
crossed.
if I'm wrong, but that wasn't known until they actually awarded
Yeah.
the grants. I mean,
Right.
it was a quick
They
grant
pushed that out.
process.
I was going to say, what is the turnaround? Because you're saying we would potentially
About a
hire
month
in
and
June.
a half to 2 months.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah. When Chief brought it to me, he was ready to submit, but it would have, under this, it would have had about a $280,000 impact mid-budget year, and we were talking in March. And I was like, let's hold till next year. Let's make this part of the budget process. Let's have that conversation with council. And a month and a half later, like, you know what, we're going to fund it at 100%. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So hopefully that happens going again next year. But even if it doesn't, we've got to get those extra 6 at some point.
So they sped the process up too. So
Yes.
typically they don't do the process till April, May timeframe. They pushed it back, so it was due March 12th. So it put us under the gun. So we really started trying to pull things together, and we got it together. And I pitched it to Charlie once we figured out what the numbers were, because we had to dig in and figure out what the costs were.
Yeah.
And we pitched it then, and he said, Bob and Charlie said, I don't, it's not a good idea mid-budget year. So it's okay, So we're here with you now, talking to you about it. We want to try it again.
And Chief's got a
Push it
good
forward.
grant application put together. It's very, very strong. He's put a lot of time into it, no doubt.
You think that we've got a pretty good chance, or?
I
It's
don't
hard.
know, it's actually some of the numbers are in here, so.
Yeah, I saw 2 in South
Yeah, 2 in South Carolina, I think 125 nationwide. So, all we can do is try.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we're gonna
Nobody
do,
got it, didn't ask.
that's right. So we're gonna ask.
You are correct, sir.
I promise you, with your blessing, we're gonna ask. So,
Thanks.
Any other questions on fire for Chief through his budget?
Any capital expenses this year?
No capital
No capital.
request, really the new request. I mean, you've got some fluctuation throughout, some numbers up from this year, some down. But really your biggest change, your net change from this year to next year is in those new headcounts and the applicable turnout gear, PPE that is required for them.
You budgeted a pretty significant increase in overtime. Is that just due to staffing shortages or?
no, some of that, well, there's a few things there. So some of that is some staffing stuff, because we had some impacts this year trying to maintain numbers. And we're going to do the same next year. So it's a forecast. Do I think we'll use all that? No, I don't. And, this year we ended up in a little bit of a mess just because of COVID. It put us behind. But So some of that is mandatory training. So we've got 16 hours more mandatory training we've got to do for every one of our firefighters. And that comes on the heels of confined space and the water rescue pieces. So we've got mandatory trainings that we've got to do. So that's why there's a slight uptick there. So, it is a significant uptick from last year, but we've got some more mandatory training that we've got to do. So we've actually had a pretty good savings this year in travel and training. A lot of our training went virtual. So you guys can see our travel training numbers are way down. So that, and we also had some negotiations with some training institutes that came in and did classes for us for free.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Does the firefighters, do they participate in the mental illness?
We do.
Well,
We do it on the EMT side. So
Okay.
all of us are medical first responders, and so we get the training through, right now, York Tech.
Okay.
York Tech came in and did our training for us this year. We did about 4 hours of mental health. They actually bought, a lady from Rock Hill City came and did the training for us. And she actually bought some people who had some physical and mental challenges, and we worked with those people. So it was a huge impact for us. We also use Lexipol, who is the same people that Mask uses. That's who does our training software for us. So we use them as well to supplement that. So it's up to 6 hours a year per firefighter, in addition to what we do with our EMT side. So,
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
absolutely.
Nothing else for Chief? Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, I believe Mr. Blethen is now in the hot seat. So before we dive too deep into this, I want to circle back on the York County RAC money. Years ago, probably 15 years ago, the county set up a special tax district that was all the unincorporated areas of York County, charging them a special millage for that special tax district to offset the cost of basically all the municipalities running recreation. We had all agreed to divvy it up based on the percentage, basically by a school district. So you take whatever percentage of the total population was within your school district boundaries as compared to the overall population of York County, that was the percentage of the recreation money you got. So obviously what's been coming for the Fort Mill School District area has always been split 50-50 between us and Fort Mill. York splits their money with Hickory Grove, Sharon, Smyrna, but they keep the bulk of it, and Clover gets theirs, and Rock Hill gets theirs. And you can see, we've been averaging 100 and, what, Bob? 157, yep, $157,000 a year was our share, our 50% of that total amount coming in. And it's increased each year because of the growth in the unincorporated areas. When we had said lunch meeting with the county, they informed us that the new money, the growth money for this year, they were actually going to keep and use for the new athletic park over at Lake Wiley. I'm sorry, what? Yeah, no. And they kept saying we're going to give it to Lake Wiley. They can't, there's nobody in Lake Wiley to give it to. Some of us think that the county is trying to slide into recreation, but they don't have the facilities, so I don't know that that's going to happen. But they are about to make massive improvements over at Allison Creek Boat Landing. Not to the extent that they did at Ebenezer, I don't believe, but they are going to add picnic areas and things like that. And my guess is they're going to keep trying to claw back some of that money. We've asked them to sit down. Mayor O'Neill has gone with the other mayors. First they tell us, oh, you're too late. Then it was, oh, we can't. And yeah, they've kept coming with excuses. In my conversations with Rock Hill, they've looked into it because the county kept saying Act 388. They can't increase the millage on that recreation tax district because Act 388. Most people think Act 388 was school district. Well, it also put limitations on municipalities on how much you can increase your millage rate from one year to the next. And it's based on cost of living and percentage of population growth. All right, and there's a formula Bob uses every year, and it tells us, okay, you can increase 3 mills, you can increase 6 mills, that type thing. And it also tells you how many years you can go back to recapture mills that you didn't do, which I believe it's 3 years, right? The county has repeatedly said that they can't increase the millage on the rec fees, so they're still paying the same millage. The only reason it's grown is because the growth in the unincorporated areas. But it's a special tax district. Act 388 doesn't apply to that. They can increase that millage anytime they want to. But as the mayor said previously, nobody wants to increase taxes, but yet the cost of recreation continues to climb. So they graciously told us that we'll get the same amount, but all the new money is going to go.
For
their
this
stuff.
year.
For
we'll
this
get
year.
the same amount.
And then
we
we'll-
have to figure it out.
Then we have until 2023 fiscal year for us to figure it out.
Yeah, that's what.
That's the
what we're trying to
question of the
figure it out.
night. So, any event, that's on the, just to kind of wrap up that conversation with county stuff. I imagine there'll be some more meetings coming forward over the months, over the next few months with them on a variety of topics.
If they get away with keeping it once, you'll never see it again.
We agree 100%.
Well, if they keep it, then our TGK Parks and Rec kids can have lots of space to run around.
Talked about.
There's options, I believe. I think the county doesn't think any of the cities will exercise any of those options, but
Well, if we do it, we have to do it as
as a
a
team,
team. That's right.
agree 100%.
Yeah.
I understand.
So does this have anything to do with, like, just overall balancing, like, they're looking, oh, you guys aren't gonna contribute on the prisoner side of things, we're gonna, it's just,
No, no, they told us all this in the same exact meeting.
The
When they invite-
recreation fee thing has
they
been an
invited us for
issue for
lunch and-
years. We've
Yeah.
asked for years for an increase, and they've
Right.
stymied us at every block.
So going into the Parks and Rec budget, Alicia, you had asked me months ago, hey, when we open Catawba Park, can we run it? How are we going to staff this thing? And Joey and I and Tim have had multiple meetings over the months. And we're reorganizing our maintenance folks, both park maintenance and public works maintenance, to where we can be as efficient as possible. So in your salaries and wages, what you see here are 2 new hires, full-time hires. And then you've got seasonal part-time staff. We feel like with the reorganization between Public Works and Parks and Rec, basically we're creating a landscaping and parks team and a streets and stormwater team. All right? When there's something big going on, they can pull from all of them. Yeah. But that way we can better divide and conquer, if you will. Hats off, incredible job, Joey and Tim, working through that and figuring it out. They've included the staff, polling them. What are the duties you like to do the most? What are the ones you like the least? And fortunately, nobody likes emptying trash cans or dog stations, but sorry, somebody's got to do that. I think that was a 10 for everybody. So, we're excited about that. They're going to be meeting with them this Friday, having those conversations. They've got them all working together through the summer. One, getting ready for July 4th. Obviously, we don't have ball field stuff to do, so just trying to make as much headway on projects, beautification, and things of that nature as we can. But really, it's just re-envisioning the resources we have and how can we best use them and put them in place. And still be able to, we don't want Turner and Rundy to also look like garbage just because we're spending all of our focus on Catawba Park. Rundy and Turner have to get better. And Catawba Park, 3 years into it, can't look like a dump. So that's what this is. You've got seasonal part-time staff that'll help as far as coverage at Catawba Park, both on weekends as well as in the evenings when we've got, our rec sports out there, tournaments on the weekends, that type thing, and being supplemented by our full-time staff, kind of leading and guiding them. So,
With the part-time seasonal number that you have in front of you, it's actually broken down into windjammers, about half that number. We'll, assume we can get someone next year. We'll continue to offer that, so that's part of that budget number. And
Yeah,
then
you
the
still have the
second,
windjammer attendant,
the
yep.
second part of that is what I forecasted for just September at Catawba Park. So
Right.
heading into full opening, obviously that number, you're going to see a uptick in that.
It would uptick on the 2023 year, that seasonal part-time stuff, with a full year of the park. But what you'll also should see in 2023 is a forecast of revenues coming in from Catawba Park as far as tournaments and things like that, so.
I just got to ask before either you go over it. an increase from 7,000 to 12,000 for doggy station?
Believe
I
it or
just,
not,
I just gotta know.
Bags
hey,
are getting expensive,
well,
man.
believe it or not, I'm envisioning 8 stations at Catawba Park. They're about $400 each, so just factoring and putting those in at Catawba Park. But we go
Gus, you
through
could
a lot of
actually
bags.
sponsor those. We'll put your name on them. Nice little plaque.
We-
Word was you were getting a really big dog, Gus, so we.
Well, I wouldn't,
So
that's
we
not
got
a bad idea. Instead of, well, we're, in addition to selling bricks,
And benches.
we could sell doggy stations.
We thought about adding trash cans and
I
doggy
mean,
doggy
David, you always
stations to
said
the
you wanted to
list, but
have the Tika named after you, right?
TCO two,
So
David O'Neill Sewage Treatment Plant,
you could have
David O'Neill
that.
Memorial Treatment Plant. I figured that's what you're
The
gonna do
plaque
for me
is
anyway.
ordered. We're gonna
David
wait until
O'Neill Memorial
your
Dog
last
Poop
meeting.
Stations.
We can stick
was thinking-
a sticker on the garbage can when it flips up like a bullseye. You can throw it against.
The David O'Neill Sludge Pumper, that's it.
So like let me just ask this question. So the cost for things like outfitting with doggy stations, like things like that aren't included in the build?
There,
No.
there's several items, benches, not only around the park, but inside the dugouts, batting cages, things of that sort. We're looking
We'll capture those operationally.
operational through TKK Forever fundraising efforts.
yeah. So what we're planning on doing is with the benches, if we sell the amount that we have allocated, that would also purchase all of the, in addition to the benches, it would be enough to purchase all of the trash cans as well. So trying to kind of do it strategically and get those items that aren't included in the budget paid for through other ways.
Yeah, what was included in, as far as the park budget, if you will, that was the big ticket items. Yeah, so the smaller incremental things, whether through fundraising efforts or just through the operational budget, tackling those things.
Okay. I
Yes,
guess it's like when you build a new house, and there's a towel rack and a
Right.
toilet paper holder.
Mhm.
Yeah, you gotta buy those
All the
again.
incidentals.
But we also didn't want to finance a dugout bench for 20 years, or a trash can for 20
No?
years. Yeah, we'll probably replace that trash can 6 times in that 20 years. So, outside of that, we did increase on the trail maintenance line item. That's probably one of the bigger uptick items that you see going through there. And just trying to tackle some of those projects. A good chunk of that is the Hunter's Run Trail. And it actually covers the first phase of that, right?
We've gotten a quote to repair Hunter's Run, approximately $10,000, and I'm hoping to eat half of it this year, or this upcoming budget, with the remainder. Hit the really bad portion first, and then the remaining portion of it the following year.
What's
Is that
wrong with it?
is that the trail that goes
Root
back
damage
behind
and
the,
things like that.
back
Yeah.
through the woods there?
Yeah, from Hunter's
Yes.
Run to the Beach
Yeah.
Club.
Yeah, we call that the Woods Trail.
Got it.
Yeah.
Mine call it the secret trail.
What about any matching funds for the new trail we got, the $2
For
million
the,
grant?
for the new gray rock. So we'll, at some point, we'll get a project agreement from SCDOT. I imagine that will be sometime after it's engineered.
It probably won't be in this next budget.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
At the rate that, we're still waiting on crosswalks, so I don't think so. But any event, when that project agreement comes, I'll bring that to council and we'll discuss taking that match, from.
What is our
general fund
match? Is
reserves.
it 30%?
20%. It's about 200,000 plus. At least on their pre-design engineering estimate.
And how's it coming along with this canoe kayak rack thing?
We are still trying to get a definite answer from Smith or Smurf. Which one's property? I always. Smurf. I don't think it's going to be an issue, and then we just got to get with Mr. Vollmer.
So there's no need to be showing anything. You can take that out of something in here. Or, yeah.
It'll-
Add a line
Scout
item,
project.
add a line
I
item.
know.
That
We
would
got-
be the better thing.
We've got to
Eagle Scout
figure out,
project.
one, what this design is even going to look like, and then we'll come back to council with approval for, here's the design, here's the cost. Council, you go with it.
So are you the POC for this? Or do you have another guy that's working on this? Or
It's a tag team between me and Joy. Yes.
between you two?
Yes,
I think once we get the green light, I'll probably wind up being the guy.
he is correct. He is correct. Any questions on the Parks and Rec budget?
Keeping park maintenance the same? You don't think we need to increase that at all? I'm just asking.
I mean, if you're going to ask me, give me a blank check, absolutely.
Okay.
a lot of the park maintenance is more manual.
Right,
We tackled some pretty big things already this year.
yeah.
One of the things that we definitely want to do this winter, as soon as our fall sports end, is get that old dilapidated dugout torn down at Turner. It hasn't been used in 10 years.
One of the
more.
nice things that we had this past year is with COVID, the mulch delay, getting mulch spread, so we were actually able to carry the playground mulch past this budget year, which freed up approximately $9,000 that we were able to spend on other things. So that definitely helped knock some things off the list.
For sure.
So I've got some park and rec things, but,
Go ahead.
well, I think, will we talk about that, like the capital items that we submitted? I know that we submitted like a list of things. I'm sorry.
Trails and stuff like that? Sure. We can discuss now. We can discuss when we get through non-departmental, which is
Yeah.
what the next thing is.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
We'll wait.
So I'll run through anything else for Joey while he's here? Good.
Thanks, Joey.
Thanks, sir.
I'll see you
You'll
at
him
Beach
just-
Club.
Yep, see you in a few minutes at Beach Club. Non-departmental, legal fees, we're doing very, very well this year, so we've brought that down some. Everything else is pretty much straightforward through here. Obviously, we're not showing the operational contingency yet. That's that balancing number of 229, 174 you see at the bottom down there. But yeah, you've got some fluctuations here and there. Obviously, you're going to see, I mean, you got a $589,681 in bond payments for Catawba Park, 171 and change for police station, 200 and change for fire station. But again, those are being offset by your impact fees. And we keep ticking away at the golf course bonds, not too much longer now. And we'll be able to eliminate those things. RFATs, it's based on our population, and that's just our percentage payment that goes into RFATs for the services rendered there. Really nothing else in here as far as changes.
Remind me what the safety program is?
Safety program, that is for our safety lunches, safety equipment, and our maintenance as far as PPE, things like that.
Okay.
That's what we run through there. We're required to do a minimum of once per quarter safety meetings, and we do those as a lunch and learn with everybody, get everybody together. And thus far, we haven't gotten down to wish sandwiches at those lunches as yet, so we're still putting a little bit of deli meat on them at this point. But we had our first one June 9th, first one in a year. Staff really looks forward to it, to get a lot out of it. Tim is our safety and risk manager and has a safety committee, and that's what we do there. And the employee program is the EAP through First Sun, where employees can call counseling services, things of that nature. And that's what our cost is on that.
There's nothing for this year or next year for C funds, I guess, because we don't
We
know?
we bring those in
Okay.
on the revenue end and on the expense end as
Okay.
we get
It's
awarded.
usually 100%.
Yeah.
in and out.
Right, okay.
Property insurance increase of 30,000, did you say what that was?
Yeah, it's going up. Schmidt
Premiums going up.
Because of,
premiums.
Well,
equipment,
Just
because of the
stuff in
pool
general.
experience, yep.
And newer equipment, old equipment,
Mm-hmm.
it changes.
We did get a refund on workers' comp though, so that's great.
29,000, yeah.
29,000. Employees working safety, so the safety program's working. But yeah, the property insurance premiums, I mean, one, you've got new things, obviously. We got a big shiny new $500,000 playground down there that had to hit the insurance, but then your premiums are also upticking
They're
slightly
all
as well.
affected.
And that's for all your Smurf folks. That's not just TKK.
When are you going to, say again, when are you going to start the windward sidewalk?
Well, that was going to be the next conversation.
Oh.
So, any other questions on those non-departmental items? Okay.
It's on the same page on my.
Yep.
packet.
Yes, sir. So, when we went through the council objectives, I don't want to call it a wish list. It was council goals, directives, things that they would like to see. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Get that pulled up for us. So, and I realize that's hard to see. Let's see, let's zoom in a little bit, make that a tiny bit easier. Basically, yeah, obviously, we've discussed this with staff, with our leadership teams, and just kind of assigned who from staff are going to be working on those things. So obviously, continue to working with retail strategies for the Game Off and Windhaven stuff. Signed that, myself and Susan, we're tag teaming with the Economic Development Commission since Tom retired. I believe Susan, y'all was at y'all's meeting last night. She's handled the last two. I keep in conversation with Gus and with Jim Stalford, the chair, and have told Susan, anytime she needs me to be at any of those meetings, absolutely. So we'll keep working with them. They do have, they are actively marketing what y'all are going to be getting a public hearing on July 12th. The vacant properties, they're on 160 between the entrance to Terra Plantation and they have a lot of interest in those. So we'll see where that goes. But in any event, so yes, they are actively working with Jerry Grace, and the things that he's working on. So, hopefully here as we wind down year 2 with them, they're going to start paying we're going to start seeing some returns on that investment. We've got one more year with them per the contract. So this time next year, we'll need to start having a conversation as to whether we renew that on a year-to-year or if we say, yeah, we're good. But don't need to have that conversation quite yet. Get Catawba Park open and start promoting it. We are working towards that goal. And obviously, we've got all of our Parks and Rec, as well as Katie and Joseph, myself assigned to that. Like the idea of the trail connecting Stonecrest to the Beach Club, feel it's costly, had Tim work on that. We've got that listed there, trail from Beach Club to Stonecrest.
You have a
Joe
map
Harris.
on that, shows what that is?
Does
Does that go across that?
All right, well, let me pull you up a map. I can show
Did we get
you.
it, or did we have success reaching out to that landowner and,
Not that particular one, this is.
uh-oh.
This is the one that you and I walked with Ben Ullman like a year and a half ago or whenever we looked at it. Kind of right off the Hunter's Run Woods Trail, like through up
I'll
by
give you a good
where Joe Harris's properties
idea.
are.
Okay, so is this 500,000, is that actual building it?
Yeah, and engineering costs and things like that.
Yep. So Tim's been working with our engineers. We got a pre-design estimate of approximately $320,000. That included a 20% contingency and engineering fees. We're showing it as $500,000. And also it shows that estimate includes it being a 10-foot wide paved. Obviously with the boardwalk, I've added more into there, onto that 320. Because one, as you're going across wetlands, which totally legal and easy to do with Army Corps as far as just, running that boardwalk. It's about, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, you can shout out, about 150 foot of boardwalk, correct, Tim? Give or take 150 foot of elevated boardwalk to get through wetland areas. Obviously it hasn't been surveyed state, but Mayor, I'm not going to turn on the background, but you've got a Hunter's Run Trail runs up through here, okay? Right about here, we've got the Dove Trace lift station.
Got it.
All right? So coming off of that and coming right up to here,
I know it will.
okay? So that's what
Been
we're
stuck
looking.
back there before.
That's what we're looking at doing with that. We want to make sure that that elevated boardwalk is sturdy enough for golf cart traffic and not just a foot boardwalk. So whether it's converting to permatrek or it's just more robust, we don't know what we're going to have to run into with helical piers that we had to come back and install on the bridge below the water tower over here off of Blackhawk, in Lakeshore. Newland just put it in with posts and concrete, and then all of a sudden the posts were hanging in air with the concrete still around it because everything had washed out. So we had to go back and support it with about 16 helical piers. So we put some money as far as budgetary onto that one, and using a $500,000 number there. So envisioning, obviously with council's blessings, taking that down and not having to finance that, just pay cash and get it done. Put it out for bid after it's engineered and turn somebody loose on it. Joe Harris, If you're familiar with his business park, that lower construction entrance, that whole thing going on back is unusable property for him. He has agreed to, we just need to work through the paperwork and whatnot with his folks, to donate that land to TKK Forever so that we can use that, and it really helps the trail transition and the switchbacks,
Is that where
so.
we like went over the cliff?
Yes.
Okay. That's where we went down.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So that's that. Creating a passive park along the creek that goes through Game Off. Susan's conversations with Jerry, loves the idea. His engineer says, yes, that could happen. So look forward to bringing that to council here pretty soon to look at the updated site plan, which I believe the update from Susan was just about has that ready. So excited about some things, hopefully getting going over there.
Can you make it vandalism proof somehow,
What's that?
the bridge? I mean, I just foresee what's gonna happen down there. They did
Down in the woods?
Pitcairn Pier and all that.
Right. We will try to make it as robust as we can, just short of making it a concrete bridge. Yes, sir. The
Charlie,
drug,
can you make that a little bit bigger?
yes. Does that help?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. The drug enforcement traffic specialist, we talked about during the PD budget, with that K-9 traffic cop. Traffic calming measures along Windjammer, Molokai, Point Clear. Tim's been talking with our engineers, and I'll show you something real quick.
I'm getting messages about it.
Heather has been talking to some of the Windjammer folks. You really have no right-of-way out the whole length of Windjammer. I think you got about 22 feet of asphalt, and in some places, you've got the front property pins and the roadway. Yeah, we've looked at, hey, can we put an island, in an intersection, and there's no room. So Chief and I, after talking with Tim, after he's talked to the engineers, Chief and I went and drove it again, and here's what the recommendation would be, is you already have this four-way stop here. Let me turn this into slideshow mode. So it gets a little bit. Yes. So this is your Tulagi Pitcairn. That one already exists. Making this, getting a bigger stop sign, okay, with the reflective bars on it, and doing rumble strips leading up to it, as well as just as you're coming out of the, through the cart path area, having a stop sign ahead sign, okay, hey, stop rolling through the freaking stop sign. Coming down to the next four-way, which is Cebu and Pitcairn, there is no stop sign on Windjammer there. So you've got a nice, easy straightaway to generate a lot of speed, turn that into a four-way stop, okay? Again, large sign, rumble strips going up to it. And then coming down to Silver Fox and doing a three-way stop. I realize that people in this area, Snapper Point, say people speed through there all the time. When you're standing still and there is a vehicle coming through a curve, it is gonna look like it's flying. Absolutely. That's what the optics are gonna show you. We could potentially come back later, but what we thought was let's install these. Let's monitor this with traffic enforcement, right? And if necessary, I mean, realistically, once you hit Beaver Run is where you can start picking up speed. But then you've got this stop sign. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do another one down here at Kiwi because it just gets so tight and windy down to the park. But really, let's check them up here at Silver Fox and move on down. Now, I don't have a map for Molokai and Point Clear, but basically envisioning doing the same things, because we have the same issues on those streets. You get a lot of walkers. You've got no right-of-way. Yeah, I mean, everybody wants a sidewalk on the other side of the street, So, there's a couple places where we can go through and prune, and lift up lines of sight, both on Windjammer. Not as much on Molokai, but there are a couple places on Point Clear where we have City Greenware golf course property. Raise the limbs, make it a little bit easier to see through there. And again, just hitting some, like at Kalua and Point Clear, where Kalua loops all the way around. Good spot for a three-way stop, because the only stop sign you've got is at Triton. And then, so finding those straightaways where people can pick up speed and using this as realistically, it's using it as almost like a speed bump. You're slowing them down, hopefully stopping them, before they, in areas where they can generate a lot of speed. So that was the suggestions that came back as far as the traffic calming. would like to start with those. Really not that expensive. I mean, your signs, you're talking about $150 a piece, would be captured in the street maintenance budget, so operationally. So that's why you didn't see it as a whole separate thing. Could be captured operational, and done that way. So that's what we're looking at, as far as that council goal.
So that's included in just the operating budget?
And the operating
Just-
budget, yep,
okay.
for that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Let's get back over to here we go. Let's see. Safe and/or complete pedestrian bike routes to parks. Working on that. Yeah, it's not anything we've got in the budget at this point. Obviously, to our main parks, Rundy, Turner, Catawba Park, we feel like you're going to have those, with the trails in Catawba Park and the connections to the Lake Ridge Trails, which connect to the Stonecrest sidewalk, that type thing. Some of the pocket parks, things like that, gets a little bit trickier. Heron, on the bike ped plan, Heron Harbor to Turner, cutting through that gully and things like that. There's already a nature trail. Kids cut through there already. It's going to be extremely difficult, damn near impossible, to pave through there because it's a huge watershed. It goes all the way down to the lake. That's still in process as we're going through, working with Susan on the overall bike ped plan stuff that Chairman Leonard sent out to everybody. You're not going to see anything budget-wise in regards to that one. Evaluation of crosswalk enhancements. Realistically, that's sitting on hold until they get the DOT comes and puts in the world's most expensive crosswalk with all their lights. I think going forward, the one at
Seven
Catamaran.
Cove?
The one at Catamaran, we don't need DOT's permission for. We can do the solar-powered rapid flashing beacons on that one, that's pedestrian activated, and again, can capture that. That's really not an expensive project. I think the next one that we look at outside of that one is potentially funding one at Windjammer, at that crossing. Federal Highways has already said we can do the rapid flashing beacons. The only reason DOT has said we can't is because we're using RFAT's money. If we're using our money, it's an encroachment permit.
Is there anything that we can do, just given how long it's taken just to get this one built,
Right.
approved and then built, to even just add more lighting to the crosswalks that go across TK Drive? Because I think if we could even just brighten them up, especially at dark.
So we changed them all out to LEDs
Okay.
to make them brighter. The one at Heron Harbor, Tim actually got Duke to put a reflector, so it does make it across, and shines, it lights up the whole thing. The problem is you've got trees around it, and it's very dark behind it, so unless you're looking for it, but it is lit up. The only one that's, let's see, Seven Coves at Trail Ridge, you've got lights on both sides there, where it's lit up. Callaway, you've got a light on one side, not on the other, and it's not the right type. We'd have to get Duke to change that light out to the taller. It's got the smaller decorative metal halide pole. So that one could be lit up more. There is no power lighting at the Amberwoods, what we refer to as the Amberwoods crosswalk that comes from the Miller property, that mid-block crossing.
But that was going away, right?
Well, not yet. It'll cost about $100,000 to get rid of that thing. And that's why we're just like, okay, you can stay right there. Let's just leave you alone for right now. But, so I think once we get this one done, one, we can get them done quicker. Our process would be a lot faster than DOT's. And we can, through encroachment permits and things like that, can start ticking some off. The one at Catamaran is, one, it leads to the ball fields, and two, it's in a dark area where you don't have a lot of street lights. I would recommend us going after that one, and then, trying to see what we can do at Windjammer.
Okay. And then I think at one point when we met with SCDOT, they were like, oh, we can add reflector strips onto some of the signs, and I think they came.
They did.
And did they get all of them though? Because I felt like they didn't get all of them, but, okay, I could just be wrong then. Yeah.
Right. I think they got them all.
Okay. I'll look again tomorrow or.
Public art ordinance, that's not a budgetary item, other than, are we looking to do some type of art in phases 1 and 2 at Catawba Park? And if so, what? I'm not your art guy, so.
I mean, I think that.
In the
yeah.
roundabout drop-off
Yeah.
that's in proximity to the entrance to the baseball complex and the soccer complex, we intentionally made them leave the middle open from the landscaping.
Mm-hmm.
If there was something somebody wanted to put there, but
You could put out an, is it an RFP that you'd put out?
Sure.
Or RFQ, a request for qualifications, artists come back and say, this is what I've done before in terms of public art. Then you pick the ones the artists that you think could do something, something cool.
so we just need to get somebody to do the statue. Got it.
I'll do it. Let me do it.
I already saw the emoji that you want to use.
The little swirl.
It's a little dark, yeah.
I'll get with Susan on that. Maybe we can lean on the York County Arts
Yeah.
Council and get some ideas there.
Yeah.
Fencing,
In-
I know, it didn't taste like that.
So in Charlotte, the Arts and Science Council has a robust public art program there. So you might even be able to call them and just learn about their process.
Cool.
Assuming Carla, I think it's Hansel or something like that. I can
Okay.
look it up for you.
All
But she was their public art contact, and I'm pretty sure they'd be more than happy to talk to you all and
Got it.
just give you some insight on how they've done it.
okay.
As something to example
Fencing
as well.
around maintenance yard, that is something Tim is working towards out of the operational budget on that building and ground side of things. The increased parking for tennis and pickleball, I've asked Tim to monitor that through the year, over the next 6-8 months. That's probably going to be a request for next fiscal year. I've pitched it to prior councils, but moving the parking up above the courts and coming in off of Molokai. I know. There's really nowhere else to increase the parking for them, but we're going to monitor it through the summer, through the fall. There have been some days where it's very difficult for golf and public works to get in and out because of pickleball's a popular sport. And we gave them more courts, and it didn't help them spread out, it just brought more of them in. So still working through that, but Tim is going to be working over the next several months. Again, not a budget request for this year, but what could that look like? Yeah, and what would that cost if we were to go up there? Yeah, to put some semblance of parking there without clear cutting that corner, obviously. Service state is to senior citizens. I actually talked about at your last council meeting on our service Saturdays. Katie is actually going to take lead on that, working with Tim, and it's actually going to be Shannon Washington, Chief Parker's assistant. So they've already been having some meetings, and Katie's going to slide into that function July 5th, once we get through the 4th.
Isn't July 5th a holiday?
It is, but she doesn't have to worry about the 4th anymore, come July 5th. So, but no. So looking forward to that. We're hoping to get in October, first one done, and doing once a quarter. But if we have to make sure that we do it right, we may kick it to early spring. But they are working through that, and soon we hope to be pushing out, taking, nominations, applications, tell us who and why, what the need is type thing. Improvements to Lookout Park Fields, that is ongoing, but we feel like now that we have got Yellowstone working on our turf grass maintenance, that is going to continue to improve. But realistically, we've probably got 2 more seasons at Lookout Park, and then we're gonna, for the most part, gonna be done there, since it's just a daylight field, and just let that convert more back into the passive recreation. But one of the biggest things that we have found is the lack of turf grass maintenance that it's received over the last couple of years is one of the biggest reasons, without aerating, verticutting, things of that nature. It's become hard pan ground that just keeps the water here. So working through that, I think you'll see improvements definitely by this fall, and even further improvements going into the spring season. So still working through there. Again, that's just captured through operational. The startup business incubator, I've got Susan's name by that, but Heather, you and I have had a lot of conversations. Gus, you and I have had some conversations. So still working through that. I think part of that's going to depend on what our lost revenue recapture is on general fund, through ARP, but we don't have ARP money yet because the state hasn't requested it from the feds. So the non-entitlement cities still don't have their money yet. Well, we can't spend it directly on that, but depending on how much we're able to capture in lost revenues from general fund, from that, then there may be some funds out of reserves potentially. So still working through that. I think there's some good conversations happening there. Skate park features at the park, check. Got that rolling.
Sweet.
So it ain't gonna look like a skate park, but it's skatable features.
Skatable features.
All right. Yes, ma'am. We made sure that the amphitheater stage, it's all concrete. There's a nice little ramp around the back of it. There's some cool little steps off the front. There's a big 15-foot concrete pad at the bottom of those.
Medical aid station right there.
Have at it. First aid station sitting on the stage, absolutely. Additional leaf vac truck we've talked about, and we'll be bringing that request to council with a resolution in November. ARP projects, that's kind of a all call, but at this point, I mean, we've got some ideas. The bulk of it, you're gonna see is sewer and sewer improvements projects and water sewer in Catawba Park to help offset some of the expenses there. It's not flashy, but, I think, Heather, you had put it to me, that's, nobody wants to replace their roof or their water heater either, but you still have to do it, so. But again, once we actually get funds deposited on that, then we'll bring some ideas and conversations to council for discussion. And that was the list that we got, that I received. I think Heather and Alicia, y'all had a combined, and then Gus, you had sent me some. So that's kind of where we went through there. So again, if you come back to your budget, at the bottom, under your proposed capital, it's $688,000, and we still would have a $229,000 contingency. And I still think there's another $200,000-$300,000 that could materialize in revenues, whether through taxes and/or BIBL. Yeah, on top of that. So it's a healthy budget. The Windward Sidewalk and the Beach Club Trail, I mean, that started with Matt Harris 15 years ago. I think doing it this way, I think it could be a very heavily utilized trail. I think
Absolutely
people
would be.
would jump all over it.
Yep.
Send him a message and let him know that it's coming to fruition.
Now that he's gone.
Is there any considerations for